Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we invite guests to share their stories. Hello, I'm Dr. James W. Smith, your host. When you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcast, please consider supporting us with a donation or a monthly contribution as low as $3. To all supporters, we say thank you. Be sure to check out my inspiring, encouraging, and transformative books available on Amazon. I'm also available for speaking engagements, so feel free to contact me by way of Facebook, LinkedIn, or my website, www.dealbymepodcast.com. I have with me Ezra Stuyvesant, who is a 75-year-old husband, father, and grandfather who spent 57 years married to the love of his life. When his wife passed away unexpectedly on Christmas morning in 2023, his world changed forever. In the quiet grief that followed, Ezra began to write, not just to process the loss, but to honor the journey they had shared. What emerged was a deeply personal love story, a reflection on their lifelong search for God, their shared moment of faith, and the enduring bond that grief could not break. I'm excited to have Ezra come and share with this podcast. So, Ezra, would you share with listeners uh, any additional information you want to share regarding your personal journey and where you're located?
Sure, thank you. Well, my journey began once my wife passed away, Christmas morning. We didn't anticipate it. It was totally unexpected. I was the one supposed to go first because I was the one with all the problems. So it was a shock, and I went through a heavy grieving period. And I ran across a quote by Dostoevsky that said, "How could you live and have no story to tell?" So it got me to thinking, about, well, we had a story. The story we had was our journey in finding the God within us. So I started to put pen to paper and started to basically pour out our journey for whoever was in whether it's for my children, grandchildren, or those people seeking the God that's within them, for anyone to be able to share that journey. And that was the important thing, was to get that out.
Mm,
Um, so that's how it started.
okay. All right. I'm really impressed with uh, your your book. I have not had the opportunity to read it, but there was when I went on Amazon, there were a couple of things that jumped out to me as I was looking at it. And one of the things I like to ask you, and you may have already said it, but I want to make it a little bit more succinct. Most people who write, there is something within them that make them do it. There is perhaps this drive, this something that's pushing them that I got to get this story out. Can I ask you what that was with you?
Well, it was two things, really. One was the thought in my brain, basically from my wife saying, "Get writing, get busy, get writing, tell our story." The other one was, I'm an old man, and advice is not usually accepted readily by older people in our society. So when I would try to share something, it would be something like, "Okay, whatever." So between the two of them, between my wife telling me in my ear, "Get busy, get writing, get it out," and the need in me to share our journey, that's how the book happened. That was the
Okay.
drive to get it out.
Okay, that's Very interesting. So I take it that you and your wife had already discussed, you know, your desire to write, and she pushed you to move forward with it. Am I correct in that statement?
No, it was just a memory that I had about the two of us.
Oh, okay. Okay, that
It-
makes sense now. Okay. That was the
yeah, it
memory.
was a
All right.
memory that I had.
Okay. I got you. I got you. Well, that's very, very interesting. I mean, and I will say this to you, yeah, so that you can appreciate maybe our conversation. I pastored for 32 years before retiring. So you're right in my line when you talk about questions about God and life. So I kind of, like that, and I'm very interested in this conversation with you. I note that something was said on page 7, and I'm getting this from Amazon, and looking at a little bit about your book. Uh, and you said God's greatest gift to man or woman is their free will. Man's greatest gift to God is the willful surrender of their free will back to God to do God's will. Awesome statement. Is Can you elaborate on that a little bit more of what you mean? When listeners, reading, they want to get a good feel for where you're coming from.
Sure. Well, that's the God's gift to us.
Hmm.
God's gift to us is our free will.
Okay.
And it's the question of what we choose to do with it.
Hmm.
But if we're in the search, to me, the search for God is not out there somewhere.
Hmm.
The search for God is within you,
Hmm.
and that search within you requires the moment of willfully surrendering your free will, or a man or woman, to back to God, to
Hmm.
give it back to God. It's the prayer of, not my will, dear God, but your will be done.
Hmm.
Guide me, dear God. Dear God, take my mind and ego thoughts.
Hmm.
Let me be with God today. Consume my ego so that I may know you.
Wow.
Starting life with simple prayers, saying, this is what's important to me. It's not my job. We all have the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief purpose. But the other purpose that we have is knowing the God within us,
Okay.
1000%.
Hmm.
And so we get there through surrendering our free will willingly, not in any negative way, but willingly, daily, day in and day out, moment in and moment out, back to God. Dear God, guide my life. Dear God, take my ego,
Hmm.
consume my ego in God's love. That's the essence of it.
I hear you. I hear you. You know, I'm sitting here thinking as you were talking. I assume, and I'm not sure if this is correct, but the death of your wife on Christmas morning had a lot to do with your questions about God and life.
Well, it was her favorite holiday.
Okay.
Christmas, it was her favorite holiday. We had spent the night before Christmas Eve putting gifts out under the tree for the grandkids to show up, making food for them, doing our lives as we normally do on a Christmas Eve, thinking nothing was amiss, if you will.
Hmm.
And then the shock of me waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning and she was gone.
Hmm.
So maybe that's her message to me and to the family and to people. She died on her favorite day of the year.
Hmm. Wow. This is I can feel I can feel the grief. I can feel how you must be feeling and must have felt at that moment, especially when things were going well on the Christmas Eve and all that you were expecting to do on Christmas Day, it must be a shock. So I really can feel that. Tell me a little bit about one of the statements that was made on page 14 of your book. Uh, you said it is important to become the glory on the mountaintop, not the little light in the valley. I mean, that's a very powerful statement. And I know listeners, if they're like I am, would like to get a little bit more clarity with that in terms of what you were getting at, what you mean. Could you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The I believe it was from an Irish song or a poem. I'm not quite sure which, but they talked about becoming the glory on the mountaintop,
Mm-hmm.
not the gleam on the hillside
Mm.
or the little light in the valley.
Okay.
So I use that as a metaphor. It's not my original thought, unfortunately. I like to
Uh,
claim it, but it's not.
okay.
Uh, it was a metaphor to talk about the journey of the God within us,
Mm.
that it takes time is a concept that where we are constantly through prayer, through meditation, through service, through compassion, through love, we're working to feel, experience the God within us, as I say in the book, 1000% of the time.
Okay.
That's becoming the glory on the mountaintop,
Mm.
realizing your fullest potential in God and doing God's purpose for the rest of your time on the planet, and
Wow.
not the little gleam on the hillside or the little light in the valley.
Oh, wow. Very, very powerful. Uh, Ezra, you know, uh, what is it that you would want listeners to get from reading your book? Uh, there, I assume there is something that you would like to see them kind of uh, get from reading it that will help them in some way. Is there anything particularly that you would want readers to get from listening to this podcast or from reading your book?
Yes, to me, the main thing I would hope people would get is that God is real.
Mm,
God lives within you.
mm.
There's no searching outside of you. It's doing the work within yourself to realize that potential of knowing God 1000%, as I say in the book,
Oh, wow.
that it is an illusion, if you will, to spend your energy out there searching for God when God is already there. God is already existing within you.
Mm,
You just have to remove what I call the rocks, the pebbles, the boulders from the stream of God that flows within you to be able to actualize that in reality, to know the God within you 1000%. It takes work, it takes prayer, it takes meditation, it takes not being in projection, it takes not blaming other people, it means taking responsibility for your life and what you've created until you've given your life 1000% to doing God's will.
mm,
And that's the main message to me is God's real. God is universal. There is nothing out there other than what you can find within you. But you've got to do the work.
mm.
You've got to do the work.
Wow. Very powerful. Very powerful. Would you take this time, Ezra, to share with listeners where they can get your book, and if you have a website, they can learn more about you? Would you take this moment to do that?
Sure. You can get my book through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, either as a paperback or through like a Kindle version. I have a website that you can find out more information about. It's simply Ezra questions about God and life.com. That takes you to my website. I also, if you're on Facebook, I have a Facebook author site there. It's just author Ezra Stuyvesant. If you're on Facebook, that takes you to a lot of the excerpts, the reviews, the uh, some of my philosophy, more if you will, about sharing about the God that's within us. So those would be the main sources, I would say.
Hmm. Great. Thanks for sharing that with listeners. Uh, Let me ask you a few more questions. Um, and these were also taken from statements that were made in your book. And one that was this was cute to me. I really liked reading this one. It said the joke is you can never leave God. Wherever you go, there you are. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, I just like that statement.
Well, I'd like to take credit for it as mine, but it's not mine original
That's
thought.
okay. Talk about it.
Well, they think they can leave God. You
Okay.
will never leave God.
Mm,
Your job on this planet is to rediscover the God within you. Rediscover. What do I mean by that? You were
uh-huh.
born undifferentiated. You were one with God when you were born. You already have the experience of being one with God.
Mm,
You simply need to remember, to rediscover that connection.
mm.
That's what I'm talking about. So wherever you go, you think you're going to get away from this thing or this lesson or that lesson. Guess what? God's right there with you.
Mm,
God's right there talking to you. If you're willing to answer
mm.
the phone and, let God talk to you.
I love it.
So
I love it. I love it. So wherever you are, he's right there with us. That's
that's
very,
right.
very, very powerful. You're speaking to me. I mean, I love this conversation with you. Uh,
Thank you.
being a minister myself, it speaks really even to me because I know exactly where you are coming from, and I can feel it within you, and I just feel confident that readers who will read your book or even listen to this podcast will really be inspired and encouraged. Uh, is there word, that you would leave with listeners? My podcast is about encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. And I didn't mention this to you in the beginning, but some of my guests I like to ask that because listeners are listening to the podcast. So I just want to ask you, and if you don't, I'm okay with that. But is there a word that you would leave with listeners of this podcast that might be encouraging, inspiring, or transforming?
Start praying.
Mm,
Start praying.
mm,
Simple prayers to start. If you haven't prayed in years, months, whatever, start praying. Dear God,
mm,
take my ego, consume my ego in your love.
mm,
Stop being in projection. Stop blaming other people for your lot in life. Start taking responsibility. Do the work. It's not easy. It's like, what's the old saying? No one ever promised you a rose garden kind of moment. You have to do the work. You want to know God? Well, guess what? God wants you to work.
mm.
God wants to make sure it's not your ego that is taking predominance. That's why we have so many wars on the planet. You don't resolve the war within us between the mind and ego and God, so that gets acted out on the planet. Start praying, start praying, start meditating,
Mm.
start taking responsibility, stay out of blame, take responsibility and do the work. It's hard work to want to know God 1000% in your life now and forever.
Well said. Well said. Ezra, it has been a pleasure talking with you. Is there anything else that you would like for listeners to know, or which anything else you like to say uh, to listeners? Please feel free to do so.
Well, I've pretty much said a lot already.
Okay.
Um, the I don't have at my age, I don't have ambition anymore. You
Mhm.
know, I'm too old to have ambition.
Right.
I have purpose. My purpose is to, for whatever, however long it is to somehow communicate that God is real and that God lives within you
Mm.
and everyone else. I don't care whether you're an atheist or what religion, God is universal.
Mm.
It's God. Oh, it's all God.
Oh God. Mm. Well said. Well said. Ezra,
Thank you.
it has been a real pleasure to talk with you on this day, and I'm wishing you well. And um, I'm certain that listeners who will listen to this podcast and get your book will be really uplifted and inspired just by reading it and listening to this podcast. And so there you have it today. Ezra Stuyvesant, uh, the author of Questions About God and Life. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.